I used to count the hours until Vanessa and our son Jamie would come home. The way Jamie's laughter would echo through the hallway. The warm press of Vanessa's lips against mine. The way our house transformed from an empty shell into a home with their presence. But that was before I found the texts. Before I realized this wasn't the first time she'd disappeared with Jamie to be with him. With Daniel. My name is Nathan Pierce, and for 3 years I've been living a lie. The first time it happened, I believed her. A spontaneous trip to visit her college roommate, who was going through a rough patch. 2 weeks away seemed reasonable enough. I missed them terribly, but I understood. That's what love is. Understanding, compromise, sacrifice. When they returned, Jamie had new toys I didn't recognize, and Vanessa seemed lighter somehow, as if she'd shed a weight I hadn't realized she'd been carrying. "We had such a wonderful time," she said, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "Sarah sends her love." It was 6 months later when I found a receipt in her coat pocket. A restaurant 200 miles away, dated during their supposed visit to Sarah. A simple mistake, I told myself. Perhaps they'd taken a day trip somewhere. I never mentioned it. The second disappearance came after a particularly heated argument about our future. Vanessa wanted to relocate for a job opportunity. I had just been promoted at the architectural firm where I'd worked for 8 years. We couldn't find middle ground. "I need space to think," she told me one evening, bags already packed by the door. Jamie stood beside her, clutching his favorite dinosaur toy, confusion clouding his 5-year-old features. "We'll stay with my sister for a while." 3 weeks that time. Rebecca, her sister, called me 4 days into their absence, asking if I'd heard from Vanessa. My blood ran cold as I realized she had no idea they were supposed to be with her. When they returned, Vanessa had explanations. Stories about last-minute changes of plans, phone batteries dying, misunderstandings. And I accepted them because the alternative was too painful to consider. Jamie seemed different after that trip, more withdrawn, asking questions about a man named Daniel who apparently had a pool and a dog named Rocket. The third time broke something in me. It wasn't just the leaving, it was finding Jamie's drawing tucked into his backpack after they returned. A crude crayon illustration of 3 figures. Mommy, me, and Daniel, with the words "my family" scrawled underneath in my son's handwriting. The paper crumpled in my trembling hands as reality came crashing down. Still, I said nothing. I became an actor in my own life, pretending everything was normal while secretly checking her phone when she slept, finding deleted messages and mysterious calls. I became someone I didn't recognize, suspicious, paranoid, hollow. The 4th disappearance happened 3 months ago. This time she didn't even fabricate an elaborate excuse. "Jamie and I need to get away for a bit," she said casually over breakfast, as if announcing a trip to the grocery store. "Don't wait up for us. We'll be back when we're back." The empty closet where her clothes should be. The silence in Jamie's room. The neighbors' pitying glances. All familiar wounds reopened each time she'd leave. "She'll be back," they'd say. And she always was, until she needed something more exciting again. I spent those weeks in a daze, going through the motions at work, coming home to an empty house that echoed with absences. I drank too much, slept too little, stared at my phone, waiting for messages that rarely came. When they did, they were brief and vague. "We're fine," or "Jamie says hi." When Rebecca showed up at my door with a sympathetic expression and a bottle of wine, I knew something had shifted. We sat in my kitchen, the kitchen Vanessa and I had renovated together when Jamie was just learning to walk, and she finally told me what everyone else seemed to know. "She's been doing this since college, Nathan," Rebecca said, her eyes filled with pity. "You're not the first, and you won't be the last. Daniel was her boyfriend before you. They never really ended things." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "She loves the stability you provide, but she craves the excitement he gives her. Jamie's caught in the middle of it all. My son. My boy. A child torn between two worlds, taught that love is something intermittent and unreliable. The thought burned through me like acid. "When are they coming back this time?" Rebecca asked softly. I checked the calendar on the refrigerator, the one where Vanessa had scribbled their return date before leaving, as if scheduling an ordinary appointment. "Tomorrow," I said, my voice strange to my own ears. After Rebecca left, I sat alone in the darkness of our living room, surrounded by photographs of a family that existed only in fragments. For the first time, I allowed myself to really see the pattern that had defined my marriage, the cyclical nature of abandonment and return, the way I'd made myself smaller each time, more accommodating, more desperate to keep what was already lost. Tomorrow, Vanessa and Jamie would walk through that door, and she would expect me to welcome them as I always had. Grateful for their return, unwilling to ask the questions burning inside me. But something had changed in me during this last absence. A seed of resolution taking root where blind hope once lived. Tomorrow they would return. But this time I wouldn't be here waiting. The calendar on the refrigerator mocked me with its red circle around today's date. April 15th, Return Day. I'd spent the morning cleaning obsessively, vacuuming every corner, wiping down surfaces already spotless, arranging Jamie's toys in the precise way he liked them. The pantry was stocked with his favorite cereal. The laundry hampers empty, awaiting their clothes that would carry unfamiliar scents. It's what I always did before they returned, this ritual of preparation, as if I could erase the evidence of their absence by creating the perfect homecoming, as if I could make them want to stay this time. I stood in Jamie's room, smoothing the dinosaur comforter on his bed. He'd be taller now, I thought. 3 months is a long time in the life of an 8-year-old. Would he have new expressions, new favorite foods, new words learned from a man who wasn't his father? The framed photo on his nightstand caught my eye. The 3 of us at the beach last summer. Jamie perched on my shoulders, Vanessa smiling up at us. We looked happy. We looked real. I wondered now if she'd been thinking of Daniel even then, mentally comparing our lives, finding mine wanting. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from Vanessa. ETA 3 p.m. 3 simple letters and a time. No, I've missed you, or can't wait to see you. Just an estimated time of arrival, like she was delivering a package rather than returning a family. I sank onto Jamie's bed, suddenly unable to maintain the charade any longer. This room, preserved like a museum to a child who was being taught to live 2 separate lives. The toys I'd bought him for Christmas, barely touched before they whisked away again in February. The growth chart on the wall where I'd last marked his height on his birthday in November. How many more years would this continue? How many more disappearances and half-hearted returns? How many more lies would I swallow just to keep them in my life? The hallway closet door was ajar, and something compelled me to open it fully. On the top shelf, behind the spare blankets, was a shoebox I hadn't seen before. Standing on tiptoe, I pulled it down, already knowing what I'd find. Letters, dozens of them, in Vanessa's handwriting, all addressed to Daniel. I shouldn't have read them. Some part of me knew that crossing this line would make it impossible to return to the comfortable denial I'd been living in. But I sat on the hallway floor and read every single one. They dated back years, before Jamie was born, before our wedding. Love letters written in a voice I'd never heard from my wife, full of passion and promises. They detailed plans, fantasies, secrets. In one, dated just 2 months after our wedding, she wrote, "Being with Nathan feels like wearing shoes that almost fit. Comfortable enough to walk in, but never quite right. When I'm with you, I'm barefoot on warm sand." I read about their planned rendezvous, the elaborate lies she'd constructed. How Daniel had been hesitant about their arrangement at first, but had grown to accept it. How Jamie asked for him when they were alone. My hands trembled as I found the most recent letter, dated just before their current absence. "This time, I'm thinking we might not come back," she'd written. "Jamie asked me yesterday why we always have to leave Daniel to go back to Nathan's house. I didn't know what to tell him." Nathan's house. Not our home. Not Jamie's home. Just a place they visited between their real life, elsewhere. The front door opened, startling me. I scrambled to my feet, the letters scattered around me like fallen leaves. But it wasn't Vanessa and Jamie. It was Rebecca, using the spare key I'd given her years ago. "I wanted to check on you before they—" Her voice trailed off as she took in the scene, me standing amid the evidence of my wife's betrayal, face streaked with tears I hadn't realized I'd been shedding. "You knew," I said. Not a question. She nodded slowly, eyes full of a guilt that answered questions I hadn't even asked yet. "I tried to tell her to end it properly, to either commit to you or let you go, but Vanessa—" She sighed heavily. "My sister has always wanted everything without consequences." Rebecca stepped carefully over the letters and led me to the kitchen. She made coffee while I sat in stunned silence, trying to process the magnitude of the deception. The years wasted, the love misplaced. "Did you know from the beginning?" I finally asked. "Not the beginning," she admitted, setting a steaming mug in front of me. "I thought she'd ended things with Daniel when she married you. I only found out during their first trip, when she called me from his place by mistake." She wrapped her hands around her own mug. "I confronted her afterward. She promised it was a one-time thing, a moment of weakness. Then it happened again, and again." "And Jamie?" My voice cracked on my son's name. Does he call Daniel Dad?" Rebecca couldn't meet my eyes. "I don't know everything, Nathan. I just know that this isn't right. What she's doing to you, to Jamie." She reached across the table to grip my hand. "But I do know one thing. You deserve better than being someone's part-time life." We sat in silence as the clock ticked closer to 3. Outside, spring sunshine bathed the yard where I'd built Jamie a swing set with my own hands, where I'd taught him to ride a bike, where I'd waited so many times for his return. "What are you going to do?" Rebecca finally asked. I looked around our kitchen, at the family calendar, the refrigerator covered in Jamie's artwork, the height markings on the doorframe. All the trappings of a life that was half real, half illusion. "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. But even as I said it, I felt something crystallizing inside me. A clarity that had been building through each absence, each return, each discovered lie. Rebecca left shortly after, hugging me tightly at the door. "Whatever you decide," she whispered, "know that not everyone leaves." Alone again, I moved through the house with new eyes, seeing it not as the home I'd built for us, but as the waiting room it had become. The place I existed in between Vanessa's real life elsewhere. In Jamie's room, I found his treasure box, a wooden chest where he kept his most precious possessions. I'd helped him paint it blue and gold when he was 5. Inside, beneath the arrowheads and special rocks and toy cars, was a folded paper I'd never seen before. Another drawing, this one more detailed, more recent than the one I'd found years ago. It showed 4 figures now: Mommy, me, Daniel, and off to the side, smaller than the rest, a stick figure labeled Dad. Something broke inside me then, something fundamental that had been cracking for years, the dam of denial and hope finally giving way to the flood of truth. I sank to the floor, clutching my son's drawing, and allowed myself to feel everything I'd been suppressing. The rage, the grief, the humiliation. But beneath it all, something unexpected began to emerge. A sense of resolution, of possibility. For the first time, I could see the situation with perfect clarity. This wasn't a rough patch in our marriage. This wasn't something to endure until it got better. This was the reality of my life with Vanessa, and it would never change unless I changed it. I checked my watch. 2:15 p.m. They would be here in 45 minutes. Just enough time to make a decision I should have made years ago. The cardboard box felt lighter than it should have, considering it contained 8 years of marriage. Photo albums. The engraved watch Vanessa had given me on our first anniversary. The blue tie I wore when Jamie was born. Fragments of a life I'd thought was real, now revealed as an elaborate stage production where I was the only one who didn't know the script. I moved through the house methodically, gathering only what mattered most. My architectural drawings, my father's pocket watch, the leather journal where I'd documented Jamie's firsts, first steps, first words, first day of school. Not all the memories were lies. Jamie's love for me was real, even if it was being slowly poisoned by divided loyalties and adult deceptions. In our bedroom, my bedroom now, I stood before the closet that had been half empty for 3 months. Vanessa's clothes hung on her side, the expensive dresses and blouses I'd complimented her on, never knowing some had been gifts from another man. I ran my fingers along the fabric of her wedding dress, preserved in plastic at the back of the closet. Had she been thinking of him even then, as she walked down the aisle toward me? I remembered our wedding day with painful clarity, how beautiful she'd looked, how my voice had shaken as I recited my vows. Promises of forever that she'd had no intention of keeping. I'd meant every word. What had those words meant to her? The wedding photo still stood on the nightstand, one of the few I'd kept out during their absences. I picked it up now, studying our faces. We looked happy. We looked in love. Had that part been real, at least in the beginning? Or had I been a convenient solution, a stable alternative, a safety net beneath her high-wire act with Daniel? I tucked the photo into my box, not as a token of love anymore, but as a reminder of the lessons I'd learned at tremendous cost. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed twice, startling me from my thoughts. 1 hour until they arrived. My heart raced as the reality of what I was about to do crashed over me. I was leaving. Walking away from the life I'd built, the home I'd created, the family I'd thought was mine. Could I really do this? Could I bear to leave Jamie? But then, hadn't Jamie already been taken from me? Hadn't Vanessa already made that choice, bringing our son into her deception, teaching him to live a fractured existence between 2 men, 2 homes, 2 versions of family? My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, scrolling to find Craig's number. My oldest friend, the one person who'd tried to warn me years ago when he'd spotted Vanessa with another man. I'd dismissed his concerns then, accused him of trying to sabotage my happiness. We hadn't spoken much since. Nathan? His voice was cautious when he answered. Everything okay? I need a favor, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. A big one. 20 minutes later, Craig's truck pulled into my driveway. He didn't ask questions as he helped me load the few boxes I'd packed. He simply nodded when I explained I couldn't stay in the house when they returned, that I needed somewhere to go until I figured out my next steps. You can stay with us as long as you need, he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. Laura will be glad to see you. I took one final walk through the house, our first home, where we'd built a life I'd thought was solid, the kitchen where I'd taught Jamie to make pancakes on Sunday mornings, the living room where we'd opened Christmas presents and built blanket forts, the backyard where I'd planned to build a treehouse this summer. In the kitchen, I sat at the table and wrote the hardest letter of my life. Vanessa, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know about Daniel. I've known for longer than you might think. I know about the trips, the lies, the double life you've been living. I found your letters. I've spent years making excuses for your absences, both physical and emotional. I've pretended not to notice when Jamie mentions things he couldn't have experienced with me. I've swallowed my pride and my pain each time you've returned, grateful simply to have you back in our home. But I can't do it anymore. I won't. I deserve more than being your safety net, your fallback plan, your convenient foundation while you build a real life elsewhere. Jamie deserves more than being taught that love is conditional and family is fractured. I'm not leaving to punish you. I'm leaving to save myself, and the house is yours. I've arranged with my lawyer to have the necessary papers drawn up. I don't want to fight over material things, but I will fight for Jamie if I have to. He needs stability and honesty, not this elaborate deception you've constructed. For now, I just need time and space away from the life we've pretended to have. Please don't try to contact me for a while. My lawyer will be in touch about arrangements for Jamie. I've loved you as best I could. I've loved Jamie with everything in me. That hasn't changed, but everything else has. Nathan. I placed the letter on the counter, my house keys beside it. The wedding ring came off last, a simple gold band that had never left my finger in 8 years. It made a soft clink as I set it down, the sound of finality. Craig waited in his truck, engine idling, as I locked the front door for the last time. The spare key went under the ceramic turtle in the garden, where it had always been, where Vanessa would find it if she'd forgotten her own key. Some habits were hard to break. "Ready?" Craig asked as I climbed into the passenger seat. I glanced back at the house. The blue shutters I'd painted myself, the flower beds Vanessa had planted when we first moved in, the basketball hoop mounted above the garage for Jamie when he got older. A perfect picture of domestic happiness, a beautiful lie. "Yeah," I said. "I'm ready." As Craig pulled away from the curb, I checked my watch one last time. 2:40 p.m., 20 minutes before they were due to arrive. 20 minutes before Vanessa would walk through that door, expecting to find me waiting, as always, reliable, forgiving, blind. Instead, she would find an empty house and the truth I'd been too afraid to acknowledge for years, that love shouldn't hurt this much, that I deserved better than to be someone's second choice, someone's safety net, someone's part-time husband and father. The neighborhood receded in the side mirror, the streets where Jamie had learned to ride his bike, where Vanessa and I had taken evening walks in happier times, where neighbors had watched our comings and goings with pitying eyes, knowing what I had refused to see. "You okay?" Craig asked quietly as we turned onto the main road. I wasn't okay. I was terrified and heartbroken and furious and, strangely, lighter than I'd felt in years. The knot that had lived in my chest, tightening with each of their departures, never fully loosening upon their returns, was finally beginning to unravel. "No," I answered honestly, "but I think I will be." As we drove away from the only life I'd known for nearly a decade, I felt something unexpected stir within me. Not just grief for what I'd lost, but anticipation for what might come next. A future undefined by someone else's choices. A chance to build something authentic, even if I had to build it alone. The wedding band had left a pale indentation on my finger, a ghost of the commitment I'd honored, and Vanessa had not. I rubbed at it absently, knowing the mark would fade with time, just as the sharpest edges of this pain would eventually soften. Some might call this running away. In the past, I might have called it that myself. But as the house disappeared from view, I recognized this moment for what it truly was. The first step toward reclaiming my life. Toward teaching Jamie, by example, that love shouldn't require the surrender of your dignity or the abandonment of your truth. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning I should have embraced long ago. The calls started at 3:17 p.m. I watched Vanessa's name flash across my phone screen as Craig and I crossed the county line. By 3:30, she had called 7 times. I silenced the phone and stared out the window at the unfamiliar landscape rushing past, trying to quiet the voice in my head that begged me to answer, to explain, to apologize for leaving, as if I were the one who had something to apologize for. "You don't have to pick up," Craig said, eyes fixed on the road ahead. "But you might want to text her that Jamie is okay. She might think something happened to both of you." He was right. Whatever Vanessa had done, she was still Jamie's mother. I sent a brief message. "I'm safe. Jamie is with you, not me. I've left a letter explaining everything." Her response came immediately. "What do you mean Jamie is with me? He's not here. Nathan, what's going on?" The world tilted on its axis. My hands went numb, the phone nearly slipping from my grasp. "Craig, stop the car." "What's wrong?" "Jamie's not with her." The words felt like stones in my mouth. "She doesn't have Jamie." Craig pulled onto the shoulder, gravel crunching beneath the tires. My mind raced through possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Had something happened to my son? Had Daniel taken him somewhere without Vanessa? Was this some kind of sick game? I called her, heart hammering against my ribs. She answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" Her voice was tight, with barely controlled panic. "And what do you mean Jamie is with me? I dropped him at my mother's 3 days ago. She was supposed to bring him to the house today. I thought he'd be with you by now." "Your mother?" I hadn't spoken to Vanessa's mother in over a year, not since the last time she'd covered for one of her daughter's disappearances. Why would Jamie be with her? "Because I asked her to bring him home while I—" She hesitated, and I could picture her standing in our empty kitchen, the letter in her hand, realizing how completely everything had unraveled. "While I took care of some things." "You mean while you said goodbye to Daniel?" The words tasted bitter. "While you transitioned from one life back to the other?" Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken truths. "Nathan." Her voice softened, taking on the conciliatory tone I'd heard so many times before. "Let's not do this over the phone. Come home and we can talk about everything. About Jamie, about us, about—" "There is no us." My voice was steadier than I felt. "Not anymore." I ended the call and immediately dialed Vanessa's mother, Eleanor. No answer. I tried 3 more times before leaving an urgent message. Craig watched me with growing concern. "What's happening, Nathan?" "I don't know." Fear clawed at my throat. "But we need to go back." The drive back was a blur, my mind cycling through scenarios, each worse than the last. Had Eleanor forgotten which day she was supposed to bring Jamie home? Had there been an accident? Was this Vanessa's way of forcing me to return? When we pulled up to the house, Vanessa's car was in the driveway alongside another I didn't recognize. My front door stood open, and as I approached, I could hear raised voices from inside. I found them in the kitchen. Vanessa and a man I'd seen only in photographs Jamie had accidentally left behind after their trips. Daniel. They fell silent as I entered, both turning to look at me with expressions I couldn't quite read. "Where is my son?" I demanded, ignoring the bizarre reality of confronting my wife and her lover in the home I'd fled just hours ago. "Mom's not answering her phone," Vanessa said, her face pale. "Daniel's been trying her landline, but nothing." Daniel, the man who had been a shadow in my marriage for years, nodded awkwardly. He was taller than me, more athletic, with the kind of casual confidence I'd always struggled to project. Seeing him in my kitchen made this nightmare surreally concrete. "I've called the hospitals," he offered. as if we were colleagues working together on a project rather than two men who had shared the same woman, the same child, in a grotesque arrangement I'd never agreed to. This isn't happening. I pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. Jamie was supposed to be with you. And you were supposed to be here, Vanessa countered, anger flaring. She held up my letter. What is this, Nathan? You're just walking away from us? From Jamie? The audacity struck me like a physical blow. Are you serious right now? After everything you've done, you're questioning my commitment to Jamie. You've been taking him away from me for years, Vanessa. Letting him bond with another man, making him divide his loyalty, his love. And now you've lost him. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Look, man, this isn't helping find Jamie. Don't. I turned on him, years of suppressed rage finding a target. Don't pretend you care about my son now. Don't act like you haven't been helping destroy his sense of stability, his understanding of family. Your son? Something dangerous flashed in Daniel's eyes. Jamie's been part of my life since he was 3 years old. I taught him to swim. I was there when he lost his first tooth during one of your wife's trips. I've been more of a constant than you realize. The implications of his words sliced through me. How much of Jamie's life had I missed? How many milestones had occurred during those absences I'd attributed to visits with relatives or friends? The sound of a car door slamming outside interrupted our confrontation. All three of us froze, then moved as one toward the front door. Eleanor stood on the porch, one hand on Jamie's shoulder. My son looked confused, his small suitcase clutched in his other hand. When he saw me, his face lit up. Dad! He broke free from his grandmother and ran to me. I dropped to my knees, gathering him into an embrace that nearly shattered me with its intensity. He smelled of Eleanor's perfume and the strawberry shampoo Vanessa always bought him. He felt solid and real in my arms. The one true thing in a world of deceptions. Where were you? I managed, pulling back to study his face. We were so worried. Jamie looked puzzled. Grandma and I went to the Science Museum. She said Mom and Dad wanted us to have fun today. Mom and Dad. The casual way he said it, as if he wasn't referring to Vanessa and me, but to Vanessa and Daniel, sent ice through my veins. Eleanor approached cautiously. I'm sorry we're late. The exhibit was so fascinating, and then there was traffic. Her voice trailed off as she registered the tension, the strange tableau of the three adults standing in strained silence. What's going on? Vanessa pulled her mother inside, whispering urgently. I kept my focus on Jamie, drinking in the sight of him. Slightly taller than 3 months ago, his hair longer, a new freckle on his nose. Are you staying home now? He asked, and my heart contracted painfully at the hope in his voice. Did he mean me, or was he asking if his time with Daniel was over for now? Before I could form a response, Daniel stepped forward and placed a hand on Jamie's head in a gesture so casually possessive that something primitive rose in me. Hey, buddy, he said softly. Good to see you. Jamie's reaction was automatic. He released me and turned toward Daniel, a different kind of smile lighting his features. Daniel, did you bring Rocket? His excitement at seeing this man, this stranger who wasn't a stranger to him, was like a knife between my ribs. Not this time, sport. Daniel glanced at me, something like apology in his expression. I think you and your dad need some time together. Your dad. At least he'd acknowledged that much. Eleanor emerged from the kitchen, her expression grave. Jamie, honey, why don't you go unpack your things? I need to talk to your parents. Parents. Plural. As if this bizarre triangle was normal. Accepted. Something a child should navigate. As Jamie disappeared up the stairs, the 4 adults stood in my living room. The wife who had betrayed me, the man she'd betrayed me with, the mother-in-law who had facilitated their deception, and me, the husband who had finally reached his breaking point. "We need to figure this out," Eleanor said firmly, "for Jamie's sake." I looked at these people who had conspired, knowingly or not, to fracture my family and distort my reality. The anger that had propelled me out the door earlier had transformed into something colder, more resolute. "Yes," I agreed, my voice steady. "We do, but not like this. Not anymore." Jamie's footsteps thundered back down the stairs, oblivious to the seismic shifts occurring in his world. His innocent face peered around the corner, his existence the only thing anchoring me in this moment of collapse and clarity. "Dad," he called, to me this time. "Can we have pizza tonight, please?" In the midst of this adult chaos, his simple request was both heartbreaking and grounding. Whatever happened next, however this impossible situation resolved, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I would no longer participate in the elaborate fiction that had defined our family. Not for Vanessa's comfort, not for Daniel's convenience, not even for Jamie's sense of continuity. The truth, however painful, was the only foundation solid enough to build upon now. 6 months can change everything. Or perhaps, more accurately, 6 months can reveal the truth that was always there beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged. The apartment Craig helped me find is smaller than our house. Just 2 bedrooms in a complex with a community pool and a playground visible from my balcony. The walls are still mostly bare, though Jamie's artwork brightens the refrigerator and his room is a riot of color and toy dinosaurs. It's not the home I thought I'd be living in at 40, but it's honest. Every square inch of it is real. Jamie spends alternating weeks with me now. The custody arrangement our lawyers finally negotiated after weeks of bitter arguments and painful revelations. The first few transitions were agonizing, watching my son's small face crumple with confusion as he was shuttled between homes, trying to understand why his world had suddenly fractured along such clear lines. "But why can't we all live together?" he'd asked one night, his voice small in the darkness of his new bedroom. "Daniel and you and Mom, like before." His words had hollowed me out. Like before. In Jamie's 8-year-old mind, we had been one big, unconventional family, his mother flitting between 2 homes, 2 men, 2 versions of herself with Jamie as the bridge connecting these separate worlds. He hadn't understood that I'd been living in ignorance while he'd been taught to compartmentalize, to keep secrets, to navigate adult complexities no child should have to manage. "Because sometimes," I'd told him carefully, stroking his hair, "grown-ups need to be honest about what they really want, and your mom and I want different things now." The truth was both simpler and more complicated than I could explain to an 8-year-old. Vanessa had wanted everything, the stability I provided and the excitement Daniel offered. She'd wanted to keep her options perpetually open, consequences be damned. And I had wanted a fantasy, the perfect family, the devoted wife, the unambiguous role of father and husband, so badly that I'd ignored evidence to the contrary for years. The mediation sessions were brutal. Sitting across from Vanessa and Daniel, watching them present a united front while my lawyer argued for my parental rights. The revelation that Daniel had been present for so much of Jamie's life became a double-edged sword in the custody battle. It proved Vanessa's deception, but also established Daniel's significant role in Jamie's upbringing. "He calls him Dad sometimes," my lawyer had warned me privately. "We need to be prepared for how that might influence the judge's decision." In the end, we reached an uneasy compromise. Shared custody, structured transitions, family therapy sessions that left me emotionally drained, but gradually more capable of communicating with Vanessa without rage clouding every word. For Jamie's sake, we created a new normal, one built on truth rather than convenience or fear. Rebecca remained a steadfast ally throughout the process, sometimes serving as a buffer between Vanessa and me when tensions ran too high. "She's different now," Rebecca told me during one of our coffee meetings. "Losing you, nearly losing Jamie, it scared her. She's finally having to face consequences." I didn't care about Vanessa's growth. I cared about my son, about rebuilding my life, about learning to trust my own perceptions again after years of gaslighting and manipulation. The architect in me found peculiar satisfaction in reconstructing my existence from the ground up. New apartment, new routines, new understanding of myself as something other than Vanessa's husband, Jamie's father. Identities I'd allowed to consume me so completely I'd lost sight of who Nathan Pierce was beneath those roles. I started drawing again, not just buildings and blueprints for work, but sketches of landscapes, abstracts, impressions of emotions I couldn't always name. I joined a hiking group that met on weekends Jamie was with Vanessa. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage, people who'd seen what I couldn't but had respected my choices enough to stay silent. Today is moving day, the final one. The house where I'd built my marriage, raised my son, and discovered the limits of my self-deception has finally sold. Vanessa and Daniel have bought a place across town, closer to Jamie's school. I've agreed to meet them there to hand over the last of Jamie's things that had remained at the old house. Childhood mementos, photo albums, the growth chart I'd carefully cut from the wall. Jamie bounces with excitement in the passenger seat as we pull into their driveway. "Dad, you have to see my new room. Daniel built me a loft bed with a desk underneath." I feel the familiar twist in my gut at his enthusiasm for his other family, but it's duller now, less crippling. 6 months of therapy has helped me understand that Jamie's love for Daniel doesn't diminish his love for me. Children have infinite capacity for attachment. It's adults who create the artificial scarcity, the competitive fear. "That sounds awesome, buddy," I say, summoning a genuine smile as I cut the engine. Vanessa opens the door before we reach it. She looks different somehow. Her hair shorter, her expression less guarded than it has been during our tense exchanges since the separation. "Jamie, Daniel's setting up your new basketball hoop in the backyard if you want to check it out." Our son rockets past her, with barely a hello, leaving Vanessa and me in one of those loaded silences that have become our specialty. "Nathan." She steps back, holding the door wider. "Come in, please." I follow her inside, carrying the box of Jamie's things. The house is nice, modern, spacious, filled with natural light. Not unlike the home we'd shared, yet distinctly different in ways I can't immediately identify. "Daniel's company transferred him," Vanessa says, misreading my assessment of their new space. "This was the best we could find on short notice." "It's nice," I say, because it is, and because I'm tired of every interaction between us being weighted with unspoken accusations. She leads me to the kitchen, always the heart of any home, as we both used to say, and offers coffee I don't particularly want, but accept anyway. The silence between us stretches, filled with years of history too complex to address in casual conversation. "I've been seeing someone," I finally say, setting down my mug. "Her name is Allison. She's an art therapist at Jamie's school." Vanessa's eyes widen slightly, but she nods. "Is it serious?" "It's honest," I reply. "That's what matters to me now." Something passes across her face. Regret, perhaps, or simply recognition. "I never meant to hurt you, Nathan. I know that doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that." I've imagined this conversation countless times over the past 6 months. Vanessa's inevitable attempt at explanation or absolution. I've rehearsed cutting responses, righteous anger, cold dismissal. But sitting here in this unfamiliar kitchen, watching Jamie through the window as he plays in his new backyard, I find I no longer need the catharsis of confrontation. What you meant doesn't really matter anymore, I say quietly. What you did shaped all of our lives. We're here now. We need to focus on giving Jamie stability and truth, two things that were in short supply before. Daniel appears in the doorway, hesitating when he sees me. We've established a wary civility over months of custody transitions and therapy sessions, but there's still an inevitable tension between us. He nods in greeting before addressing Vanessa. The hoops all set up? Jamie's already made 3 baskets. Thanks for letting me drop these off, I say, standing. I should get going. I've got a client meeting at 1. Vanessa walks me to the door, pausing on the threshold. Jamie told me about your new place, about the woman you're seeing. He seems happy when he talks about his time with you. It's the closest thing to a peace offering she can manage, and I accept it with a nod. He's adjusting better than any of us expected. Kids are resilient, she agrees. Then, more softly. Nathan, I hope you find what you're looking for. The strange thing is, I already have. Not in the way I'd imagined when I married Vanessa, not in the fairy tale of perfect family and unwavering love I'd clung to for so long, but in the hard-won truth of my own worth. In the knowledge that I deserve more than half a life, more than conditional love, more than being someone's safety net. Jamie spots me from the backyard and races over, basketball clutched against his chest. Dad, watch this shot! I stay long enough to applaud his achievement, to high-five him and promise we'll work on his dribbling this weekend. Then I walk to my car alone, without the crushing weight of uncertainty that had been my constant companion for years. Some might say I lost everything. My wife, my home, half of my time with my son. But as I drive away from the house where Vanessa and Daniel are building their life, toward the apartment where Allison will be joining Jamie and me for dinner tonight, I know what I've actually lost are my illusions. The comfortable lies I told myself. The fear that kept me tethered to a situation that diminished me daily. In their place, I've found something far more valuable. The courage to leave before they returned. The strength to demand a life that's authentic, even when authenticity comes with pain. The wisdom to recognize that sometimes walking away isn't an act of surrender, but an act of profound self-respect. My name is Nathan Pierce, and for 3 years, I lived a lie. But today, and all the days that stretch before me, I choose to live in truth, no matter how difficult that truth might be, no matter where it might lead me. Because the most courageous thing you can do when someone keeps choosing to leave is to finally choose yourself.